Hello, beautiful people. Yay. Okay. Let me know if you can hear me. Let me know if you can see me. Give me the confirmations, all the good things. Yay. Okay, well, I know you can hear me because my test screen just went off, so. Hello. Hello, Chasing Geckos, Rover Wolf Adventures, Gma Rides. Lovely to see all of you. Thank you for being here. Hi. Hello. How did I convince Honda to give me a bike for the summer? Um, well, we'll just jump off of there and then I'll go off the questions that I have. Hi, Mom. Everybody say hello to Mama Zitto. Hello. Okay. How did I convince Honda to give me a bike for the summer? Forgive me. This is gonna be. I don't know how to tell this story short, so here we go. I hope you have a beverage. Um, So this started in 2021. What is time? Yes. At the end of 2021, I went to Overland Expo West in Flagstaff. I went there with Onyx Off-Road. They helped me go. I hung out at their booth most of the weekend, and the Honda people were there. And at the very, very end of the show, like Sunday afternoon, like everybody was already packing up. I went over to the Honda area to ogle over the Africa Twin that they had there. If you know me, you know that I have wanted an Africa Twin since they re-released in 2015. It has been my dream bike. I have wanted it so badly. When I got the CB 500X and my papa bought me the CB, I wanted the Twin. That's why we went to that dealership. The Twin was twice as much money. It was very expensive, and I did not yet have the skill set to be confident on that tall of a bike. So I got the CB. Anyway, fast forward to 2021 at the Overland Expo in Flagstaff. I went to the Honda area. I gushed over the Twin and I asked the people who were running the booth, hey, can you tell me a little bit more about this bike? I would love to know more information, like what's the difference between the standard and the adventure sport and those kinds of things. And the lovely lady who was talking to me, she's like, I don't really know any of that information, but Colin can help you. And I did not know who Colin was at that point in time. And she went over and grabbed Colin, and Colin came to help me. And I thought he was just a salesperson, you know? I just thought he was somebody who traveled with like the Honda event crew, like from event to event. I didn't know who he was. So I was just gushing to him about how much I love the Twin. He told me a bunch of information, technical specs, which I love, about the differences between the standard and the adventure sports model. And he told me about the DCT and all this other stuff. And then I gushed to him about the CB that I had and like everything I'd done on the CB, and that he loved the parallel twin engine and gush the way that I do. And then he kind of stopped and was like, well, would you like some time on one? And I was like, I didn't think you guys were doing demo rides here. And he's like, no, like a press bike for like a month. And I was like, what? What? So that's where all of this began. I went and did the Navi press launch with them in November 2021. And the Navi video did very, very well. So they were like, oh, excellent, good. And then in April 2022, they were already bringing up a bunch of bikes to the one show. So they brought the Africa Twin up with them, the 2022 Africa Twin Adventure Sports DCT. That has been my partner for all of my adventures for like the last 2 years almost. They brought her up in a truck when they were dropping stuff up at the one show. So in April 2022, I met my true love. And I was only supposed to have her turned out for 3 months to be a press bike. For those who aren't familiar, a press bike is where OEMs, not just Honda, other OEMs will lend a new bike to people who either write magazines or like general press and media stuff, right? Most of the time it's for people who write for magazines. And that way they can take the bike, they'll do a review of the bike in exchange for the time on the bike. And that's that. So in June, when I was supposed to give the bike back, nobody had called to arrange anything, so I just went about my business as usual. And at the end of June, when I was supposed to give the bike back, I was in Wyoming. if you have a good memory, you'll know that that Wyoming trip is also when I smashed the plastics on the front of the bike on the Wyoming BDR. Um, I called Honda, let them know what was happening. I was very upset about it, and they were like, "Well, are you okay?" And I was like, "Yes." And they're like, "Was anybody else involved?" And I was like, "No." And they're like, "Okay." And so then I like schmoozed a bit, and I was like, I would really, really like to keep riding this bike for the rest of the summer. You know, I'm gonna be going to all these events. Everyone really loves seeing the bike. And then I was also a part of a Montana tourism shoot, so that also was very helpful for me to be like, I'm gonna be riding this bike, and it's gonna be in a Montana tourism ad. And they're like, cool, approved, yes. Um, so the rest of the summer goes by. I take the bike to all of the events. The review video does very well. All of those things happen, right? And in October, I had to take it in for maintenance, and I was like, this is it. October 2022, by the way. This is it. They're gonna take it back, you know. Well, this is awful, but it'll be okay. And they call me and they're like, come pick up the bike. And I was like, oh, Honda's not keeping it? And he's like, well, nobody called us. So I was like, okay. So I went and got the bike. And I spent all of October and November last year, so 2022, and I made essentially a big proposal, like backed with data and all of the things. And I called Honda and I was like, here's all this data, and I would really, really like to continue borrowing this bike. Please let me continue to borrow this bike. And beyond all odds, like, and any reasonable expectation, they said yes. So that's incredible, and I am so grateful. I cannot imagine doing everything that I did this summer on any other bike, to be completely and 100% honest with you. Could I have done it on the CB? Yes. Would I have been in significantly more pain? Yes. And not specifically just the cross-country trip. I mean, I worked an event every single weekend from May all the way to August, like to the end of August, you guys. I worked an event every weekend. And I put a lot of miles on that bike in a very short period of time. Like just one, for example, was I shot the Oregon Run for Easy Rider this year, and that event consisted of going from Portland, Oregon to John Day in one day, and then from John Day to Yachats on the Oregon coast in one day, which is a long day if you've never done it. It's a very long day. Like if you map it on Google Maps, the mileage doesn't seem that long, but when you travel through Eastern Oregon, the roads are very windy. The speed limit is a little bit lower. It turns what you think would be a mild day into a very long day. Anyway, that rant aside, that's how I got Honda to let me borrow a bike for essentially 2 years, and I can't imagine my life without her right now, and I don't want to think about it. I hope that answered your question. Yay! Oh, my brother is hilarious. Yes, thank you. I hope that he knows. I think he's hilarious. So there's yes. Yay! Hello, Ed, Leah, Frank. Lovely to see all of you. Hi. Oh, hello from Kansas. Hi, Amy. Oh my goodness. Moto by Chance has a 1250 GSA now. Wow. That's incredible. That's super awesome. Congratulations. Hi. So many highs. I like this. This is great. Hello from Philadelphia. Hi, Jim. It's lovely to see you. How heavy was everything you carried with you on your cross-country trip? From Frank. I did not weigh it, so I would not know the exact weight for you. I'm not an ounce counter. I will tell you that it's still less than 2 people on the bike. No, let me rephrase that. The weight of all the luggage on the back of my motorcycle is still less than another person sitting on the back of my bike in gear. Yeah. So to me, that means that it weighs a little bit under like 160 pounds, probably a little bit. Yeah, that's probably the range. A little bit under 160 pounds. Hi. When I was looking at an ADV bike, it was between the GSA and the Twin. The final choice came down to the one I could get with the right suspension for me. It was a close call. That's totally fair. I got to ride the GSA at the BMW US Rider Academy, and they're great bikes. Absolutely. I just have a love affair for the Twin, and that's okay. There are so many people who love the GSA, and it's fantastic. There's a reason so many people ride them, but the Twin is meant for me. I have not talked to Honda again yet, so I wonder if Honda not sending any Africa to the U.S. market in 2023 had anything to do with their decisions. I don't know. It's possible. Who knows? No clue. Hi from Maine. Hello, Melissa. I hope you enjoyed our state and the weather was okay. Maine was one of my favorite states. It was fantastic. Highly recommend to anybody. It was incredible. I think that might also have to do with my bias towards like my experience once I crossed into the New England states. I felt like I dealt with way less nosy people in New England. And like I know that everybody looks for different things when they're traveling. My personal pet peeve, and some of you already know this, my personal pet peeve is just getting asked over and over and over again where I'm headed to next. And when I give a vague answer, like I'm headed to this state or I'm headed east, and then people continue to pry, that is the part that I hate. Like the fact that people ask you where you're going, like I get it, that's like a small talk thing, but also it tends to only happen in Midwestern states in my personal experience. Or at least the most of it, like repeatedly. How do I phrase this? When I hit a gas station, every single gas station I stopped at in the Midwest, somebody felt the need to ask me where I was going. I don't have that experience anywhere else in the United States. Not on the West Coast, not on the East Coast, and definitely not New England. New England, no one asked me that question, and it was amazing. But the pet peeve part for me isn't the fact that they asked that question, it's the fact that they continue to pry after I give them a vague answer. That's what I hate. I don't like it. Anyway, so getting to New England after crossing the Midwest and no one asking me a single personal question, it was incredible. And from my personal experience, of course, everybody's experience is different. People only talk to me in New England if they had like something really nice to say, a compliment or something, or if I did something wrong. There was like no, like, excuse me, there was no like in the middle chit chat, like how's the weather, like none of that happened, and I loved it. It was fantastic. Does that make me weird? Maybe. I accepted it. It was great. It was a fantastic time. Let's see, where was I? I lost my spot. Maine, yes. Do you think you'll be able to buy the bike used from Honda? I do not know. I don't know, you guys. I've told you as much as I know right now. That's it. Excuse my voice, my goodness. Oh, Robin, I knew it was you based on your thumbnail, your little profile icon. No worries, don't worry. And Grandma Rides survived her ride to Key West and back. Well done, fantastic, that's awesome. Hi, Doc on a Bike. We met at ADV Fest in July. You're doing great stuff. Thank you so much. That's very kind of you. Wouldn't it be a kick if they gave it to her for a used bike price when she put that many miles on it? Yeah, she's the Africa Twin has 30,000 miles on her now. She's my baby, through and through. I think at this point nope, I can't say that. I was gonna say that I put more miles on her than any other one. No, because the CB has 50,000 on it, right? So yeah. while I was going through Maine this August, it seemed like I got rained on just about every day. Oh, I'm so sorry you had that experience, James. I think it rained on me a bit, but like it wasn't a proper downpour. Like it downpoured on me in Michigan. That was the worst storm that I went through in the whole trip. Um, and like the rain for the whole rest of the trip just felt like nothing because of the storm that I went through in Michigan. I couldn't see anything. The rain, it was so, it was, yeah. There was a lot of it, and it came down really hard. So any of the rainstorms on the whole rest of the trip felt absolutely fine. It was totally okay. Mainers tend to keep to themselves, but are very helpful if you need to ask someone for help. This is true. This is 100% my experience. It was amazing. I dare you to take a trip on a Can-Am Spider. Maybe. Eh. I always find it interesting that so many people are so endeared to big bikes. I have ride to bottom, top to bottom of South America, all across Southeast Asia, lots more miles on all on smaller bikes. Respect to you, you know. I think part of the reason I really enjoy the Africa Twin for what I do is the fact that I think that you're comparing apples to oranges a little bit because in other countries or like other continents, really, Asia, South America, and even Africa to a certain extent, like like it's better to have a smaller bike. You know, the roads are twistier, they're in less good condition, for lack of a better term, in broad areas, right? Not that there aren't nice, beautifully paved roads in those countries, just that there are big swaths of roads that are in less good condition that can beat you up a lot more if you're on a heavy bike, especially if you get through that rough terrain. You have to dump it a bunch. Picking up a heavier bike, big bike, wastes a lot of energy, right? However, in the United States, if you're going to pound a lot of slab between sections of dirt, having a larger bike, larger capacity, like engine capacity bike, like the Twin, like the GSA, they're just so much more comfortable for those long hauls. You're not transferring that vibration to your arms, right? So if you're going to go through some like gnarly roads on a smaller bike, you're not going to be going super fast. So that small engine isn't going to vibrate the hell out of you, you know? Versus having a larger capacity engine doing 80 miles per hour on the freeway isn't going to vibrate you as much as if you were trying to do 80 miles per hour on a smaller engine. Does that make sense? You know, that's the reason I love the Twin. Like, what I do is a lot of really long mileage days, and I did do those long mileage days on the CB500X, and I know that's not like comparably like a small engine that like you would think of for like South America and Africa and Asia, like where a small engine would be like a 125 to like a 300. But even doing those long mile days on a 500cc still took a big toll on my body, you know. That's what I got. Yeah. If I was like, if I did off-road all the time, it would be a different thing. I probably like would opt for a smaller engine class. However, I do like 80% pavement. It's just the nature of what I do. So a larger capacity engine just makes sense. When asked where I am going, I reply with where I just rode in and leave it. I like it. Well done, Paul. So glad that you were able to cross South Carolina off your list this summer. How'd you like Greenville? It was lovely. I only got to see a little bit of it because the 3 days that I did spend there, it was all at the U.S. Rider Academy. So the little bit that I did see of it was the bit that I saw going from the U.S. Rider Academy to my Airbnb for the night and back. But it was beautiful there, and everyone was super nice. Yeah, it was cool. Oh, thank you, Melissa, for the super chat. Cheers. Thank you. Yeah. Da, 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 da. New Englanders keep to themselves. Yes, very true. Happens everywhere. People are interested in your adventures. Kind of says something about folks from New England. Yeah, they keep to themselves, and I like it. You inspired me in 2023 to go to California and back. Thank you, David. That's awesome. I hope you had a wonderful trip. I hope it was a good time. Grandma Ride says all those miles and 15 minutes of rain in the entire trip in Washington on the way home. That's wonderful. That's fantastic. See, Roos, New England is too cold to be concerned about where people are going. I like it. Yay! Oh, thank you, Northbound Motorcycle Adventures. That's very nice of you. They said that they like my editing style, for the record. Had you looked at the Suzuki 800 DE, Chris? I have not, but Gary has, and he likes it. I'm a Honda lady. I can't help it. You know, me and the parallel twin engine. I love it. I sat on a twin, and the only thing I did not like was the side stand shifting every time I got off. Interesting. Charles, saw you at ABV Fest in Black Hills, but broke my ankle. Had to miss Rocky Mountain Roll for surgery. We'll be there next year. Charles, I hope that you're healing well, and we look forward to seeing you at Rocky Mountain Roll. That also brings up an excellent point. Rocky Mountain Roll tickets, standard tickets, not standard, early bird Rocky Mountain Roll tickets launch December 7th. So if you are not on the veterans list and have already gotten access to tickets, you should mark on your calendar December 7th. I am expecting to sell out very, really quickly this year. So if you want to come in 2024, definitely mark on your calendar. December 7th is when tickets will go on sale. So, yeah. Da, 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 da. Agree with you 100% with why a big ADV bike in some places is the only way to go. I have learned so much in the last few months being off of a Harley. Excellent, Robin. Yes. Yeah, Australia is also an excellent example of that. Like a lot of mileage between places. A big ADV bike makes sense. It just depends on what you want to do with it, you know? Hi, Paul. Canadian video gamer, I'm sorry you also missed because of surgery. I hope that you're healing well. Chasing Geckos says, fair enough, but I also stay off interstates. Rode a Vespa from Toronto to California. Good on ya. Let's see. I love my 2010 Victory cross country and kept it after the motorcycle after my what? I love my 2010 Victory cross country and kept it after my motorcycle last year. I'm not, your sentence is confusing me. Lee, Amanda, do you have a favorite city you have traveled to and stayed in? Oh, I don't know. Oh, it doesn't count as a city, but it's a town. I'm going to count. It counts. It totally counts. If you've never been, Virginia City in Montana. It's, let's see, it's like an hour away from Dillon, Montana, east of Dillon, Montana. Virginia City and Nevada City are what remains of a gold boomtown area in southwest Montana. And Virginia City, it just feels like another home to me. The main drag is a bunch of fixed up old buildings from the boomtown, and they have thriving businesses in them because, well, essentially because it's a tourist trap. In the summertime, they like make a big deal about the fact that they're a boomtown, ghost town. Essentially, I wouldn't call it a ghost town though, because there's people who live there, and it's a like thriving. There's thriving businesses in them during the summertime. In the fall and the wintertime, a bunch of those businesses close down. It becomes like this beautiful sleepy town. I just love it there. I love it there both times a year. I love it when it's packed with people and all the businesses are open and it's amazing. And then I love it in the wintertime when like pretty much 80% of the town is shut down, but you can still walk up and down the streets with all of these beautiful historical buildings. and Nevada City is still like has a tight, like a wonderful spot in my heart because in Nevada City, which is like 2 miles from Virginia City, they have the Nevada City Living Historical Museum, where this gentleman in the 70s and 80s went all around Montana and bought all of these old historical buildings from the boom town of Montana, so like the 1880s, 1860s, all these old buildings that were falling apart and falling down on these farmers' land. And he bought all these buildings. He took them apart meticulously. He brought them back to Nevada City and reconstructed them in the back lot of the Living History Museum. And it's like my version of Disneyland. I love that place so much. And on weekends in the summertime, they have actors. So they have what are they called? Reenactors? Is that what they're? I can't remember the word right now. But there's people who dress up like in period costume, and they'll like tell you all about like what life was like in the 1860s in that area of Montana. And I love that place so much. Like if you like Old West history, if you like any part of Old West history, like it's not necessarily just about the mining, like, but and any part of Old West history between the like 1850s and the 1880s, I highly recommend that place. I just love it so much. And Fixin' Tooth, thank you so much for the super chat, my friend. Cheers. Anyway, I'm not sure that was actually what you were going for with your question, but that is my answer. Yeah, every chance that I can to get back there, I do. I guess a closer, like, proper answer to your question would probably be Deadwood in South Dakota. I also love Deadwood to pieces, and that's more of a proper city, I think. It's still not as big as others, but I loved Deadwood. Deadwood was awesome. But Virginia City and Nevada City and Southwest Montana will always have my heart. I love it there so much. Yay! Oh, and if you do go to Virginia City, sorry, I'm on a trail now. There is this campground and RV park just on the outskirts of town, on the east side of town, and they also have cabins. So if you're not a tent camper, they have cabins there as well. They also have laundry there, and it's locally owned and operated, and they were just the sweetest human beings. So that is also why I recommend staying there, because there's only like 2 hotels in Virginia City, and they're very expensive because they're in historical buildings. So you're also not going to get a ton of amenities there because they are historical buildings, preserved places, as it were. Although if you are a fan of trying to stay in places that may or may not be haunted, the 2 inns in Virginia City are also options for you. Yay! Paul says, I have only watched 17 videos of the 348 that were uploaded today. I guess that is what I get for subscribing to 700 motorcycle content creators. Whew, that's a lot. Did you plan all of your KOA cabin stops? I am 69 and would like to plan a trip using cabins more than tenting from camping with radios. First, Doc on a Bike, thank you very much for the super chat. Cheers, my friend. Second on Deadwood. Yes. Okay, so back to KOA cabins. So this trip was kind of unique in the fact that I was doing a lot of sponsored work on this trip. And one of those sponsored projects is that I did a separate, completely separate project for KOA. It had nothing to do with the channel. I was making little recipe videos just for them to use on their TikTok. So none of the YouTube videos are sponsored by KOA, but I was working on a totally separate project for them during this trip. As a result, I had to book all of my KOA stops in advance. To be completely transparent, they helped me pay for like 7 of those stays, but I paid out of pocket for all the rest of the KOAs that I stayed at, and I stayed at way more than 7. So by the nature of having to book those in advance, this trip was probably the most scheduled trip that I've ever done, except for a trip that I did in June for the Eastern Oregon's Tourism Board, where I also had to book every single night of that trip, and everything was like on a very strict itinerary timeline. Thankfully, I have a lot of experience traveling and knowing how much time it's going to take me to get from point A to point B with stops and all those kinds of things. So it wasn't as painful as it could have been. And I think on this cross-country trip, because I had to book pretty much every night of accommodation in advance, I only missed one of them, and that was because of the storm in Michigan. I missed one hip camp that I was supposed to stay at because of the storm, and the farmers that I was supposed to stay with, their property was all flooded. It wouldn't have been possible for me to tent camp even if I wanted to in the rain. Anyway, so did I plan all my KOA? How did you plan all? Yes, I did plan all the KOA cabin stops. I'm laughing at myself. The short version of that is I did plan all of them in advance. If you do plan and book all of your cabin stops or just your accommodations in advance in general, even if it's not KOA cabins, I would give yourself a very modest amount of mileage to do per day. You really don't want to be pushing like what you could average in a day if you are already booking all of your accommodations in advance, if that makes sense. My example of this is for the cross-country trip I did in 2022 in March, where I went from California and across the south half of the United States to Florida and back. The first, I think, 4 or 5 nights on that trip were all booked in advance because I wanted to camp at like a couple of national parks. And I missed the first one because I had stretched it too far, like the amount of mileage I expected myself to do in one day. I had put out like I was supposed to do like 450 or 500 miles the first day from Sacramento, and I didn't account for the fact that Eric was going to ride with me that for the first half of the day. I didn't account for the fact that I lost my hat. That's of course like totally not, you can't really account for something like that. So I missed the first reservation. I made it to the Joshua Tree reservation by an inch. Like I had to get up really early to make up the amount of mileage that I missed to make it to the Joshua Tree reservation. But I had like missed 2 more the next 2 nights. I was supposed to stay at Oregon Pipe National Monument. I didn't make it there. I was supposed to make it to like I can't remember the gist is that I missed a bunch of them because I expected myself to do way more mileage than was possible at that time of year when the sun was setting so much earlier. It was getting cold way faster. It was March. And thankfully for this cross-country trip, I learned my lesson from the last one, at least part of my lesson. I did not learn my lesson about getting to camp before dark. I tried so hard, it didn't work out. But I did make it to almost every single place that I booked in advance for myself, except for that one in Michigan because of the rain. And I'm still pretty dang proud of that. Anyway, part of the reason I booked all those in advance, besides the fact that it was a part of my contract with KOA for that project, was also so that I knew I would have a place to stay in a lot of those places in New England because it was fall. Fall is high season in New England, and a lot of those places get booked up like 2 or 3 months in advance. Thankfully, most of the KOA places that I did stay at, there were still places for me to book, but I booked like a month out, and a few of those places booked up like days after I booked. So if you go to New England in the fall, book like a month in advance if you can. Yeah. That was a super long-winded answer for you. I guess like I also will just say here that the KOA cabins are totally a hack in certain parts of the country where even cheap hotels like the Motel 6s and a lot of the areas that I did stay in at KOAs instead were like $140 to $150. And then the KOA cabin that I stayed at was like $90. So you, of course, you're not getting, there's not a bathroom attached to your room. Like the KOA cabins don't have bathrooms, they don't have linen, so you do have to still bring a sleeping bag and all of those things. And then you have to hoof it from your cabin to the main office area to use the bathrooms. And then depending on the KOA that you're at, that distance varies. But I think that the KOA camping cabins are definitely the way to go if you're going to stay at a KOA. Like I did tent camp at a few KOAs, but I think that the best bang for your buck at a KOA is actually the camping cabins when you're on a motorcycle. The other nice part about the KOAs was just that like almost all of them had laundry. Let's do some nerd stuff for a second because I've learned so many things about KOAs recently. So there's 3 tiers of KOAs. For you guys outside of the U.S., I'm sorry for the information that will not be helpful for you unless you come to the U.S. There's 3 tiers of KOAs, right? So there's KOA journeys, and that's kind of bottom of the just bottom tier. They're really only meant for like an overnight. They don't have a lot of amenities. Excuse my voice is just going crazy. They don't have a lot of amenities, and they're just meant for an overnight, right? I would encourage you to very thoroughly read through all the reviews at a KOA journey before you choose to stay there to vet out the bad ones. And then there's KOA holidays, which are like your best bet, right? KOA holidays tend to be more upkept. They tend to have better amenities. They tend to always have, I think every KOA holiday that I looked at had a laundry facility. I think that's like baked into being a KOA holiday. And they have clean like beautiful bathrooms. And so wherever I could, I stayed at a KOA holiday. I think I only stayed at like 2 or 3 KOA journeys on the whole trip, and that's because there was no other option in the areas that I needed to go along the route that I had planned. And then the top tier is KOA resorts, and those are like pretty much what you would think of as a camping resort, you know. And they are also tend to be aimed towards families, so there's going to be way more kids there. Depending on if you go camping with your kids, KOA resort could be a great option if you want to like go and be planned at a place for a few days. And have lots of things to distract your children with. And if you don't want to be around kids, maybe don't go to a KOA resort. Like that seems to be the main gist. But KOA resorts also like they tend to have like big kid play areas. They do a bunch of activities and like little events inside of the KOA. KOA resorts, KOA holidays all have also really good camp stores. KOA journeys tend to have a very small camp store inside the main office. I think that's the gist. And another little tip I will add in here for you is if you do stay at a KOA, try to find one not next to a main highway. It doesn't matter how many trees they plant, there will be road noise. KOAs tend to be near highways or near big cities so that they can be a place for RVs to go and plant, and then they'll like go into town to explore or whatever. But if you can find KOAs that are like on the outskirts of maybe a smaller town, those are the best ones because they're quiet, they're peaceful. I like those ones. Sometimes it can't be helped about staying in KOAs that are next to highways, but that's my recommendations. Adventure Bike Riders just found your channel a few days ago. I really like it, and I am trying to learn as much as possible to make my motovlog channel look better. Aw, thank you. I appreciate it. Hi. Maybe with enough frizz, you can get an Africa Twin with Honda for a brother. You guys can be riding twinsies. Gary loves his Beast Drum very, very much. I'm the Honda lady, and my brother is the Suzuki boy. Montana, are they getting a lot of snow yet? Yes, Mom sent me a video this morning. They just got a few inches, I think it looked like. Melissa says, I got a t-shirt with one of your designs on it at the Backroad Women's Moto Camping event, and New Brunswick, California this summer, or Canada, New Brunswick, Canada this summer. Any plans to tour Canada? Not right now. I mean, obviously, Gary and I will have to go through Canada when we do Alaska in 2025, but as of right now, I have big plans. My next goal set is to get to Alaska in 2025, and that's the next big goal. I understand long way, but would love to see you at Forgotten Angels again if you're close. Would still meet up. Thank you. I appreciate that. Next year, I'm focusing on saving money so that Gary and I can do Alaska. So no big cross-country trips next year. I will be at Ride for Veterans is in June. So if you are interested in doing that with me, I'll be going there. I think that's going to be like a big group ride to commemorate the new highway in memory of veterans, I think it is. Don't quote me. I'm sorry. I think it's in the middle of June. They're going to start in Casper, Wyoming, and then go to Milwaukie, Wisconsin, and I will be there. So check it out. I think if you legit just put Ride for Veterans into Google, it should show up, I think. You went right by my house in Lakeview, New York, and by my office on the Buffalo, New York Skyway. If I knew, I would have been cheering you on by the roadside. Thank you, David. I appreciate that. Hi, Dwayne. We accept that you're late. That's totally okay. We're glad that you're here. Kathy says Midwesterners probably ask because our roads are straight, flat, and boring, at least around Chicago they are. Really enjoyed your daily shorts. Thanks. Thank you, Kathy. Ooh. Going down out of Billings, Montana through Beartooth on a windy day is a heck of a ride. This is facts. Robin says, Montana is amazing. Allie and I fell in love when we were there in 21, thinking of having a place to summer there. Yes, I love this plan. The winter is too cold for a Texas girl. That's fair. That's totally fair. My dream, Amanda, Jess, and Stacy to be together in one video. Maybe one day. We are. No. We will be in my ADV Fest video. Stacy, Jess, and I. We're all in one place at the same time. Totaled my 2022 CV500X on Township Gravel Road, bought a 2024 Transalp 750. Thus far, a great bike. Excellent. I'm sorry to hear about your CB, but I hope that the Transalp treats you very well. Just FYI, I think your audio level is a bit low. I can hear you, but I have my volume up all the way. Thank you, Lindsay. I appreciate you. Let's see if I can do something about that. I cannot from there. Let's see if I can adjust it from here. Do. Excuse me while I mess with my audio level. Well, I raised the gain a little bit, so hopefully it's a little bit better. Hee. I apologize to everybody who now has to adjust their volume. Amanda, would you ever check out Mama Tried Motorcycle Show? Maybe. I don't know. I don't know if it's my vibe. The reason I go to the one motorcycle show is because I work a booth there. And also it's in Portland, so I don't have to go anywhere. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know if I would purposely travel to go there, though. I don't know. I work so many events, I'm just like, why? I don't know if I would go there and not work. Yeah. Agreed. Sometimes it's better to do a fewer miles in a day and enjoy things along the way. I learned that one on my across Australia trip. Would have done fewer kilometers a day to see more. Yes, 100%. I think it's just better that way. It's hard sometimes when you have a certain amount of time, but you want to see as much as possible. And I feel like it's really difficult if you only get to do 1 or 2 trips a year to like rein it in, do less miles per day so that you can enjoy your trip more. because when you're in the planning stages, you're like, but if I just push a little bit harder, I can see all these things. But in reality, you're rushing so much, you're not really seeing those things, if that makes sense. Amanda, from where do you download your music for your videos? What site do you use? I use Epidemic Sound. It's linked in a lot of the video descriptions. It wasn't linked in the Utah series because Revzilla paid for all of the links in the description. So, but if you go to some of my other videos down in the description, it will have my little referral link to Epidemic Sound. That's where I get all of my music. I have not done any European road trips, and every time somebody says that I should go to Europe, I tell them, pay for it, and then I'll go. It's very expensive. It was very interesting to learn about the KOA tiers. I've historically avoided them because I always thought of them to be more like resort ones and pricier. Yeah, I think a lot of my experiences at KOA for this trip were like very mediocre and fluctuated a lot because I just did not know enough. Like Gary and I's experience, the Bear Lake KOA journey was only that way because I didn't know better. And if I had known what I know now, we would have booked a cabin at the Bear Lake KOA Holiday Marina that was literally like 2 miles away from the KOA that we stayed at. And if we had just booked a cabin there, we would have had a much better experience. And just like little things like that, the more you know, the better of an experience you'll have, you know? And I think the other benefit of the KOAs is just like, yeah, having all those amenities there, being able to do laundry there, like being able to set up camp, like start dinner, dump laundry, go back, finish dinner, eat dinner, and then go like switch out clothes instead of having to plant yourself at a laundromat for like 2.5 hours to do laundry in the middle of the day, burning daylight, and instead of getting to a KOA and like being able to do laundry essentially after the sun goes down, so you're not burning daylight. Does that make sense? I don't know if that makes sense. I might try a KOA on the fringe seasons when the weather is iffy. Yes, totally. Camping cabins is like my new favorite thing, you guys. It was so much better than hotels. I also just felt safer. Like most KOAs are essentially like on their own lot and everything, and you kind of have to go past an office, and so you feel a little bit more secluded. And I just felt safer. I wasn't as worried about my motorcycle like parked in front of my camping cabin as I would be if my motorcycle was parked in front of a hotel. Even on the occasions where I was at a hotel that let me park the bike under the awning, part of my brain is always thinking about the bike. Versus at a KOA, parking my bike in front of a camping cabin, it doesn't feel as stressful because like there's these other like $1,000 RVs parked all the way, like $100,000 RVs parked around me, and like half of their stuff is spread out, you know, like around them. And so it fosters this much more safer feeling environment than parking my bike in front of a motel. Yeah. Yeah. Dawn says that they're ready to invest in heated gear. Excellent, excellent. I hope that you find something that works for you. I really like mobile warming stuff because it's battery powered. I get that people like to be like the steady flow of heat from being plugged into the bike, but I hate being attached. Don't like being plugged into the bike. I did try it for one trip. I loathed it. It was not for me. And I suppose like eventually you would remember to unplug yourself every time you got off the bike, but it was just so annoying. I was not here for it. The other thing that I love about like battery powered heated gear over being plugged into the bike is that if it is cold AF in your tent, you can still wear that and have heated gear well, I have a heated base layer, but mobile warming also makes like heated puffy jackets or heated like little like weather resistant like windproof jackets and those kinds of things. But if you have the heated base layer over top of your pajamas and your sleeping bag, you could have a heated base layer on in your sleeping bag until you get warmed up, and then you can turn it off. So there's like so much more versatility with battery powered heated gear than being plugged into the bike. You know, you can wear that around like camp while you're making dinner, all of those things. Anyway, that's my strong opinion. Atticus, love your channel. Just wanted to let you know I never get notifications. This seems to be a common problem with YouTube. Yeah, I am sorry. I have no control over that, but I feel you. If you're talking about mobile push notifications, maybe check your notification settings on your phone. But otherwise, yeah, it is a problem. Such a great addition to your channel. Love this commentary. Thank you. Chasing Geckos, new adventure for you. I just got back from Thailand riding for a month and plan on taking a group there next year. Would make great content. Yep, thanks. I already have plans for 2024. I'm releasing a cookbook and saving money to go to Alaska in 2025. Time to get heated gear so we can continue riding through winter for sure. I found your channel in 2023, and going through all your videos have made my year enjoyable and definitely helped me boost my confidence in motorcycle journey. Oh, that's awesome! To sing my heart, I'm sending you all of the loves, and I am excited for your new motorcycle journeys. Paul Beardley say, is that your new hat band? Oh, I am on the Utah series. On the trip to Utah, Gary and I went to Moab. I bought 2 hat bands in Moab. One of them was the punched leather one that I wore on the rest of that trip, and I loved that one. And Travis lost it. I wore the stamped leather. I'll explain it in a second. I wore the stamped leather hat band for the whole rest of the summer at Rocky Mountain Roll. It hadn't been sewn on yet, for the record. It hadn't been sewn onto the hat yet. And I left my hat in my saddle bag when I took everybody to farmer's market at Rocky Mountain Roll in August. And Travis, Explorer Adventure Moto, went back and I asked him to grab my hat for me. And so he did. In the process, my hat band disappeared. If you listen to Travis, Travis says that there was not a hat band on the hat when he pulled it out of my saddle bag. I know that there was a hat band on the hat when it went into my saddle bag. What I think happened is that I think he pulled it out by the brim, and I think that the hat band fell off somewhere between the bike and the market when he was walking back. I don't blame Travis. It's just a joke. But it's gone completely. No one can find it. I had like 2 other friends that like scoured for it. It's gone. Thankfully, I bought 2 hat bands when we were in Moab, and this is the other one that I bought while I was there. This is actually matches the hat band that I bought in Tombstone for the other hat that I bought in Tombstone. So it just felt very appropriate. Yep, that was way more information that you wanted about a hat band, but here we are. Dawn says, looking to start my first ever road trip next year, but where should I start? Oh, that is such a difficult question. I guess like the place to start is to figure out how much time you have and how much money you need to budget for. It happens, Dawn, that I have a whole playlist on the channel about planning for your road trip. So unless that's not what you were asking. But there's a whole playlist on the channel that I made a couple years ago about planning for a motorcycle trip, and I break all of the nerdy things down because I am a planner. I can't help it. Start a poll. We're getting you the perfect hat. I was noticing that cool hat band also. When traveling at home, KOAs are often where I stay, and you are spot on with the tiers. Thank you, Robin. I appreciate the backup. Those little KOA cabins are just so cute and perfect. Like it Just large enough, no bigger. Yes, exactly. I can't imagine having 3 people in them. Most of the KOA cabins like are designed so that like 3 to 4 people can sleep in them. Um, and me and my stuff take up most of that cabin. So I can't imagine being in one of those like with 3 people, let alone 4 people. That, wow. And many KOAs have overnight security too. Yes. Yes, 100%, Robin. You're with me. Lindsay, thank you for the super chat. Cheers, my friend. Donating to the Alaska Fund. I appreciate it. Thank you. Hi. My husband and I both ride, and we both follow you. We love watching your videos together. Thank you for sharing your journey. Thank you. I appreciate that. Doc on a Bike says, has it been your experience that the KOA cabins are usually air conditioned? It depends. I don't have a flat answer for you because some of the KOAs that I stayed at did have an air conditioner in the wall, and some of them did not. So you kind of, either you have to call ahead and ask, or you kind of roll the dice. Because I was traveling in the winter, I was more concerned about having a heater, so I always put in, like, when you're on the KOA website and you're booking the thing, at the bottom it says notes and requests when you're checking out, and I put in the bottom of every single one requesting a heater. And every single KOA that I asked for a heater at, they gave me a heater except for one, and that was the Lake George KOA. And I'm pretty sure that's because it was already the end of the season. There was like maybe 3 or 4 other RVs there. The office was only open for 2 hours in the morning, so I think they were severely understaffed. And I think that's why I did not get a heater. But every other KOA that I asked for one gave me a heater. So I think that if you just call up the KOA and ask if their cabins have aircon, they'll tell you. I would not expect it at any of the KOA journeys, but the KOA holidays, like, it's probably like a 50-50, maybe a 60-40 in favor of them having an aircon. But definitely not at any of the KOA journeys that I experienced. But yeah, definitely, like, don't be afraid to call them up and ask. Oh, thank you for the super chat. I'm gonna butcher this. Is it Mary Cole? Is that how you say it? Alaska Fund. Now I feel like I was part of it. Thank you very much. Cheers. Thank you for the super chat. Oh, puppy woke up. Oh, say hello to the puppy for us. By the way, I've just received my US passport. Maybe I'll ride to Canada in the future. Yay! Congratulations, Doc on a Bike. Yay! Oh my goodness, what is happening? Da, 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 da. Mary Cole, did you accidentally super chat multiple times? I can't tell what's going on. Anyway. Paul Beardsley says, Dawn, check out Little PD State Park. Plenty of tent sites. Oh, yes. Excellent tip. Yes. Fantastic. Okay. I'm going to work through some of the questions that I've got from Instagram really quick. Oh, I'm out of drink. Did I bring my other? Yes, I did. Okay. Ha 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 ha. Okay, I'll pull up my questions here. Oh my goodness. Chaos behind the scenes. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, Joanna asked me if I had tallied all of my spending for the cross-country trip. And the answer is yes, because I'm a nerd. Let me pull up my travel spend for you, Joanna. For those who don't know, I use an app called Travel Spend. I believe it's on Android and iOS. I use Android, so I know it's on Android. And I use it to track all of my expenses on a trip. That way I know exactly how much money I have and then how much I have spent. So I track every dollar that comes out of my account during a trip. And I have a little, you can't see it very much, but I've got a pie chart, and it's one of my other favorite parts of the app is that I get a little pie chart of afterwards. Okay, drum roll. I spent for about 40 days on the road in total, counting from Portland to Montana with the truck, and then going across the country from the ranch and back to Casper, and then from Casper to the ranch and my dad's truck, and then from the ranch back to Portland in my truck. $6,533 is what I spent on the trip. I had a daily average spend of $139. I feel like this amount is the daily average is skewed because of the truck. Because I went 600 miles in one day with the truck, from Portland to Montana, and then from Montana back with my truck, pulling a trailer. So my truck only gets like 8 miles per gallon with the truck camper and the trailer behind. So that's a lot of fuel in one day. So I think my daily average spend was probably way closer to like 110 on the actual motorcycle part of the trip. I think that the 139 is the skewing of my fuel consumption at the beginning and the end of the trip. And then also the fuel for my dad's truck from Casper back to the ranch. And I also gave him cash so they could pay for fuel from the ranch to Casper to pick me up. Oh, for those who didn't watch the shorts and maybe didn't know already, before the cross-country trip started, I was very concerned about my ability to get over the Rockies, knowing that I was going to be coming back at the end of October / the beginning of November, and by then normally the Rockies have already gotten a dusting of snow, you know. And so in preparation for that, I loaded up my truck and put the motorcycle on a trailer, and then went from Portland to my family's ranch in western Montana, dropped the truck and the trailer there, unloaded the bike, and left from Corvallis, Montana, and then went to the tippy top of Maine, and then down to South Carolina, and back to Casper, Wyoming, where the roads like kind of got not so great, and also I wore through my rear tire. And from experience, I know that trying to find a rear tire in Wyoming is nightmarish for the Africa Twin, having tried to do it already last summer, and it did not go well. Not last summer. Yes, it was last summer. What is time? I don't know. Anyway, I knew that if I was going to get a new rear tire in Wyoming, I would either have to sit in Casper for 3 to 4 days, potentially a whole week, waiting for a tire to be shipped to me, or I could just have my dad and brother come get me. And I wasn't going to be able to ride the rest of the way through Montana when I got that far anyhow. So the plan was actually that I was going to go up to Buffalo, Wyoming, and then my dad and brother would come for the ranch to Buffalo, Wyoming and pick me up. The Butts drove from the ranch to Casper, Wyoming in one day to pick me up. And then we drove back in one day, which is a really long haul if you've never done it before. It's a little bit over, a bit over 600 miles in one day. I think it's closer to 700. Anyway, the point being, I had no rear tire left. I didn't want to wait like a whole week just for a tire when I was that close to being home. And I couldn't have driven the rest of the way through Montana because the 2 passes that I would have had to cross were not in any condition for me to ride over in a motorcycle by the time that I was on my way back. So it just made more sense, and to be safe, for Dad and Gary to come and get me. They brought me back with Dad's truck and my trailer, and unhooked the trailer from Dad's truck, hooked it to my truck, and then I went back from Corvallis back to Portland in my truck. That's how the end of the trip and the beginning of the trip went. Hence why my numbers are so skewed. I am so long-winded tonight. Oh, it has been 63 minutes. What is time? I don't even know. Anyway, quick breakdown for those who are interested. I spent $2,492 on accommodation. So that's between campsites and KOA cabins. I did a fair number of tent camping. I stayed at like 2 hip camps, I think, and then KOA's, I think 2 or 3 hotels, maybe 4 hotels. No, it ended up being more than that by the end. I had planned to be at like 3 or 4 hotels, and it ended up being a little bit more than that by the end, because after I got to Nebraska, I stayed at 1, 2, 3 more hotels. So 2 hotels in Maine, 1 in Michigan, 1 in Kentucky, and then 3 after that. Yeah. Oh, Solace Man, thank you so much for the super chat. I got distracted. I did not pour myself more beverage. Thank you so much for the super chat. Thank you. Dun, 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 dun. Clicky, clicky. Beverage. Dun, 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 dun. Oh, the sound of bubbles from a carbonated beverage is so satisfying, don't you think? Cheers! Okay, going back, we'll finish this up quick, I promise. Or quick enough for me. I am still so slow. Transportation, which is mostly gas. I think it's all gas, yes. In the transportation category for fuel, I spent $1,900, and that includes the fuel for the truck, and then all the fuel for the motorcycle. And I think, I can't remember. It's definitely, I think it was like around 9,000 miles by the end of it. I don't remember if that number included the truck mileage or not. Something like that. Can you tell I'm so prepared? I'm so prepared. Next, I have $857 for shopping, which is all of the stickers and goodies that I got at national parks. I did buy a couple of toe warmers by the end of the trip. But mostly it's all of the little trinkets that I buy at national parks. So that's like close to $900. That's slightly concerning, but that's fine. I also bought a cutting board for like $80, so yeah. I spent $712 at restaurants, $693 for maintenance, which was just the tires at the beginning of the trip and getting those mounted, and then $414 on work-related things, and this included stuff like SD cards, and I bought a new clamp because one broke. I also bought another 2 terabyte SSD for this trip. And then groceries, I spent $398, and I made most of my own dinners. There was a few exceptions where I had specifically wanted to go to this one restaurant for dinner or whatever, but most of the time I made my own food, and then I ate lunch out. Let's see, and then the few little things, I spent about $100 on toll fees, toll roads and those kinds of stuff. And then I spent $87 on chai. And I spent $58 on sightseeing, and this does not include my national parks pass. So I have the America the Beautiful pass, and that was $80, but I've had that for the whole year, so I didn't count that for this trip. But that definitely saved a bunch of money for the sightseeing part of my budget. The $58 is like the Mammoth Cave tour that I took, my reservation to see Cadillac Mountain at Acadia National Park, my entrance fee to Niagara Falls. I have a day pass for Bunker Hills in Minneapolis, and then a day pass for the Fort Ransom State Park in North Dakota. And then I spent a total of $10 on laundry for the whole trip, and most of that was spent at KOA's. And then one charge for $3 at an ATM that my bank refunded me. That's it. That's all the money I spent on the trip. So again, $6,533 in total on the trip. Yeah. Not fantastic, but not too shabby. I knew it was going to be more than what I spent on the flight south, but because I think the flight south was around $5,000. Let's go back and look, shall we? Let's see. The flight south was $5,500, so that was the cross-country trip I did in March 2022. The real depressing one to me is looking back at the first cross-country trip that I did in 2020, and that was $2,651. So, like, just context, 2020, $2,651 for a 24-day trip across the US. In 2022, $5,500 for a 34-day trip across the US. And then 2023, $7,731 for a 40-day trip across the US. Woof. The difference is painful. So when will we see a line of your camp cooking products? The exciting thing is that I'm working with Sea to Summit on a project for next year, but I can't tell you a ton about it. Just that I get to work with Sea to Summit next year, and it's going to be awesome. I had one KOA that had deep pea gravel very hard on a large road bike. Oof! I'm sorry to hear that. I didn't get to experience any of the KOAs with deep pea gravel, so that was a good thing. Did first country trip in August 10,317. Did Route 20 across coast to coast. Route 101 from Newport to LA. Excellent. Well done. Question: how many SD cards do you start a trip with, Paul? It changes. I think in 2020 when I started that trip, I probably started the trip with like 4 micro SD cards and 4 big SD cards for the big cameras. And then I think I ended that trip with at least 8 micro SD cards and 5 or 6 big SD cards. And each of those was, so each of the micro SD cards were 128 gigs. And then the big SD cards were between 64 and 128 gigs. I think the first cross-country trip was just shy of 1 terabyte of total footage. The second cross-country trip was 1.75 terabytes. This cross-country trip is like a little bit over 2 terabytes of footage. That's fine. Everything's fine. It's fine. I think that this cross-country trip I started with 8 128 gig micro SD cards and 5 128 regular SD cards for the big cameras. And then I ended up buying a couple. I didn't buy as many on this trip as I did on the flight south. I had to buy a lot of SD cards on the flight south because I had switched to shooting in 4K on the helmet cams to have a higher quality for that. And that took up a lot more space. And also on the flight south, I was also shooting with the Insta360. I didn't have that for the first cross-country trip, and 360 footage takes up a lot more memory space. So that was part of the reason of the big jump in memory for the trip. Yeah. I don't know. I start with what I own, and then I buy as I go along, and they fill up. Hi! Late to the chat. Best state riding, worst state, weather, handicap. Okay. Oh, you mean like what is the best state for riding and what was the worst state for riding? West Virginia is still the top. Obviously, I'm biased towards Montana and Idaho. So if we're not including Montana and Idaho, then West Virginia was incredible for riding. I love West Virginia so much. I need to go back and spend more time in West Virginia. I feel like I will feel that way forever. Um, and like worst state for riding, I think just I don't I don't know. I don't have a good answer for that one because it totally depends on your experience of a place of whether the riding is good or bad. I know that like a ton of people were like, "Oh, Kansas and Nebraska is just gonna be the worst," but I didn't feel that way. Like I enjoyed parts of Kansas and I did enjoy parts of Nebraska. So I wouldn't call them the worst states for riding because I think that it depends on what you want out of riding. You know? I don't know. I enjoyed both of them. I even enjoyed North Dakota, which was surprising to me. I did not expect that, to be totally honest. But I think it has to do with like how quickly the landscape changes, like and keeps your attention or not. And I know that some people's opinion of like whether the riding is bad is if it's just a flat straight road, and I don't feel that way because I'm like, well, it could be a flat straight road, but the landscape could be changing enough to keep my attention, you know? I don't know. Let's see, where was I? I just did a pickup camping trip to Phoenix and back, which was about 4,000 miles for close to $2,300 with 3 hotels and 4 nights of camping on BLM land. It would have been more fun on for sure. Is stainless steel or aluminum cooking on? I don't. June, I think you're gonna. I need you to rephrase that question for me. um, Paul says 2 trips from South Carolina to Rocky Mountain Roll, 14 days each with 10 hotels each for less than $3,000 each on my Indian. Well done, Paul. Yeah. Doc on a bike. Put your nerd hat back on and compare per day costs 2020 to now. Okay. I'm doing it. You just want to see me cry. I know what this is. So per daily average for the 2023 cross country trip is $139. The per day average of the flight south. The flight south actually had an average of $152 a day. And the 2020 trip, the first cross country trip, I had a daily average of $73 a day. I stayed with way more friends on the first cross country trip as well, which helped reduce some of my accommodation costs, but also because it was 2020, hotel prices were so much cheaper. I think I had like a daily, like an average hotel stay on the 2020 trip was between $78. No, the cheapest hotel I stayed at in 2020 was $67, and the highest that I paid in 2020 was $130. Versus the 2022 cross country trip, my average hotel cost was like $130. I think the most expensive hotel I stayed at was $200. And I had no other option. And then the cheapest hotel that I stayed at was $86 or 80. The cheapest hotel I stayed at was $80. And I only got to stay at like 2 hotels that were that. Most of them were $130. And that was 2022. And I stayed at a lot of hotels on the 2022 trip for the flight south. And then my average accommodation prices for this trip were about $86. Between 56 and 87 was the average. The hotels that I stayed at, the Holiday Inn was 132. Northern Inn was 116. The Holiday Inn Express that I had to stay at was 170, and that one was forced because of the rain. And the other Holiday Inn I stayed at was 164, and the next one was 140. So like that like gives like a better range of like the hotel's costs in 2023 was like more like 130 to 140 versus 2022 between 80 and 130. And then in 2020 having an average hotel cost between like 60 and 80 to $90. It's very different. which of course skews the daily average. Anyway, you're still alive. Hi, Wit. It's lovely to see you, Wit. Yeah. Have I rode in Michigan? Oh my gosh, you feel very strongly about whether I've rode in Michigan. I did ride in Michigan. I've been to every state now, you guys. If you didn't know, this last cross country trip was specifically so that I have been to every state in the lower 48. Bleh. Wow. Words are great. I have been to every state in the lower 48 on a motorcycle now. Every single one. In the continental lower 48 US. I've also been to Hawaii, which means Alaska is the last state that I have to visit before I've been to every state in the United States. So yeah, I loved Michigan. People were super nice. I would love to go to the UP. Unfortunately for this trip, I just kind of had to cut across the bottom. And because of the weather, I was supposed to go to is it Holland? No. Yes? No. Yes? No. I was supposed to go to the city in Michigan that looks like a Dutch city. Anyway, I didn't end up getting to go there because of the weather, because I hit that massive storm. Otherwise, I would have. I would love to go back to Michigan. I would love to get to explore the Upper Peninsula. I think there's so many more beautiful things to see in Michigan that I didn't get to experience. I want to go back. The people were super nice. I enjoyed my stay there. Oh, okay. What's better to cook on, stainless steel or aluminum? That's an excellent question. As I age, the more experience that I have cooking on like an isobutane stove, like camp stove. I'm gonna call them camp stoves because I also have the propane stove now too. I think that stainless steel is better than aluminum. Aluminum is great because it's super lightweight. However, stainless steel is, once you know how to cook on stainless steel, you know what temperature stainless steel needs to be nonstick. You can make stainless steel nonstick. I know, crazy. Once you know what temperature stainless steel needs to be nonstick, I feel like the experience of cooking is better on stainless steel, even though it weighs more than if you have an aluminum or even a titanium pot. If you're just going to make soups and stuff, aluminum and titanium, totally okay. However, if you're going to stir fry anything, stainless steel is the way to go. Ideally, like, I would have my Sea to Summit nonstick skillet for forever. However, that's not possible. They're discontinuing the Alpha Pan, if you didn't know. So that's sad. But there's a lot of other things to think about when you're using like a non-stick skillet in like while camping. And once you like scuff up the surface of that non-stick, you can't use it anymore, which isn't great for longevity and just it being sustainable in general. Because like once you scratch the surface of a non-stick coated pan, it's releasing a lot of chemicals into your food that you don't really want to be consuming. So, anyway, long-winded way to say that I think stainless steel is better. Sia Roos, which state had a restaurant meal that keeps you up at night and makes you consider getting on your bike to ride just for the food? I'm so glad you asked. Bella's Restaurant and Rhode Island. I am still thinking about that food. I wish my stomach was bigger. I don't even remember what town I was in. But at Bella's Italian Restaurant in Rhode Island. I didn't even plan that one, you guys. I didn't do any research about this restaurant beforehand. I got to the border of Rhode Island and I was like, oh, I want to find some Italian food because you guys on the East Coast, you have the best Italian food, and I hope that you appreciate it because I was in love the whole time. It was incredible. It's not that we don't have good Italian food on the West Coast. It's just that East Coast Italian food is just superior. Anyway, I didn't do any research about this restaurant beforehand. Make sure that this is what I'm thinking about. Yes, this is it. Okay, Bella's Restaurant in Burryville, Rhode Island. I walked in and I was like super self-conscious because I walked in and everybody was dressed really nicely. And I like looked at the like waiter that was at the front. It turned out that he was like the owner. Okay. Um, he was standing in the front to greet everybody. And I walked in my riding gear and I looked at everybody, looked at him, and he's like, "Where would you like to be sat?" And I was like, "Well, am I okay like this?" And he's like, "You look beautiful. Where would you like to be sat?" And I was like, "I guess in the dining room, if that's okay." And he's like, "Yes." And he was so welcoming and so kind. It was, and he sat me down at the window, so that I would have my back to a wall. He was the nicest human. I can't even. Anyway, um, and the waiter came over to help me, and I was like going between like a bolognese and these raviolis that were on special. Okay, and I asked the waiter, I was like, "What do you think I should get?" And he's like, "Well, everybody's really, really enjoying the ravioli. It's like it was like a pumpkin squash ravioli with this beautiful pork on top, and versus the bolognese. And I love bolognese. It's like my comfort food." And and he was like, "Well, like the bolognese is great because you can eat it for like 2 days." And I was like, "Well, I'm on a motorcycle and I can't take leftovers." And he's like, "Well, then you should get the raviolis." And like he had the best personality, the best energy. He made me feel so at home. He made me feel like my friend was bringing me food, you know? And then the raviolis got there and they were to die for. It was incredible. I think about those raviolis every day. If I could, I would go back so I could experience more food. It was so good. So if you're in Rhode Island, Bella's Restaurant, it was amazing. I also just the vibe there was amazing because like there was a ton of Italian families there, like big long tables full of people, like 10 to 12 people per table, and they like I think it was Sunday. And so I think it was like after church everybody was having dinner or something like or not dinner, but like midday meal after church, which is some people's dinner. Anyway, the vibe was amazing and the food was incredible and yeah, that's yes. um, in 2020, I found a $20 stay on the Vegas Strip, and gas prices were yes. Wit knows what's that because Wit, didn't you do your 10 and 48 in 2020 as well? Um, yeah. Where would you ride to on a trip just for the food? That's so hard. If I was just gonna do a food tour. That's so hard. There's good food everywhere, you know? Oh, I don't know. I mean, if I could, I would probably like redo the New England trip and just hit all the good food. But that's harder to do on a motorcycle and feel safe because a lot of good food is in big city areas, and I don't like that. I don't like leaving my bike in front of those places, and also like good city restaurants don't tend to have a lot of windows or like so let me explain. When I pick a restaurant to stop and eat at, I want to make sure that they have a lot of windows so that and there's somewhere I could park my bike and still see my bike through a window. That's my own personal rule. Not everybody has to go with that, but that's my own personal rule is that I want to be able to see my bike. I have done research about restaurants and then gotten there and then decided that I wasn't going to be able to see my bike and turned around and found somewhere else to eat. I did that in Vermont. I was supposed to eat at some orchard place that was really well rated. Two reasons I did not eat there. One, there was definitely not some place that I could park my bike and see it through a window. Two, it was packed. um, the first reason, not being able to see my bike through a window, was the number one reason I did not actually stop and eat there. I went to a pizza place at the other end of town and ate there because I could see the bike. Anyway, Yeah, that it makes it harder to like do a food tour. I feel like if you have rules like me where you want to see your bike outside of the restaurant. Um, I did eat at a ramen place in Minneapolis. But I specifically like looked up a ramen place that was in this part of the city that wasn't very busy, and I camped just outside of town, so I was able to dump most of my stuff at my campsite, and then rode into town. So there wasn't a bunch. Half of my life wasn't on the motorcycle when it was parked in front of the restaurant, so that also helped. um, Anyway, I don't have a good answer for you, Jim. I'm sorry. I'll be watching on the TV, changing chat over to Shay Lacey and Shade Tree on my phone. They are rating our bikes. Bye. Hey Gary, I rode Inhale this year and that was fun. After crossing the Nullarbor and only having roadhouse options, I have a new respect for small town hotels. Yeah, yes. I could imagine that, Robin. Doc said, I had assumed the hotels were much cheaper in 2020. Yes, your assumption was correct. Paul said, I found a $65 room in Jackpot, Mev? Do you mean like Jackpot, Nevada? Is that what you mean, Paul? Because I have stayed at that hotel in Jackpot before. It is very affordable, but they do it that way because they want you to come downstairs to spend money. Camping with Radio says, that's a lot of fun for about $1.50 a mile. That's true. We just need Alaska. Our last one's 2025. It's true. It's true. Both Whit and I only need Alaska, and then we'll have been to all of the states. Oh yes, it was Jackpot, Nevada. Excellent, good. Robin says, wish you could come and ride Tasmania with me in February, though I am jealous about Alaska goals. Tasmania would be incredible. I've heard so many good things. John, I have not done any riding in Canada yet, but Gary and I will have to go to get to Alaska. So we'll be headed that way. Hello, Keith. It's lovely to see you in the chat. Hi, hello. Web cast iron skillet. Sure, cast iron if you want to make room for the weight. It's very, very heavy. Very heavy. Stainless steel is still better than that for the weight part of it. Would you ever consider selling hat tie downs? Mike, I'm so glad that you brought that up. So for those who don't know, I made my own hat carrier for the bike. It has 4 connection points. This is how I've carried my bike on the whole trip. It kind of goes over like that, and then it clips to the duffel bag. I will be selling them, I promise. Keeps getting pushed back because I have to finish a bunch of other projects for brands and clients before I can do that. So I'm sorry I'm super behind on that. I'm also behind on the calendar. The calendar is coming, I promise. I'm working on it, you guys. I am one person. But yes, I will be selling the hat carriers, and you all will know as soon as they get put up. And one of these days it will happen, I promise. As soon as I get to a point where I have time to do that. Have you considered doing any of the BDR routes or more off-road trekking? Wolf, I have done parts of the BDRs. I've done half of the Idaho BDR. Actually, I think I only have 2 sections of the Idaho BDR that I haven't done. I've done sections of the Washington BDR. I tried to do the Southern California BDR with Carl and Matt in 2019. That didn't go out so well for my clutch. But also, like, I had just gotten my cast off after breaking my wrist. Maybe not the best idea for a first trip after having a broken bone as doing the Southern California BDR. No, not a great idea. I did section 2 of the Wyoming BDR when I smashed the twin. But yeah, I do like doing the BDRs. I I don't know, like it would be fun to do one from end to end, but also there's so many other things to see in our country. um, you know, uh, it would be cool. Is it on my top list right now? No. Would it be awesome? Yes. That's what I've got. um, just catching up on friends. Hi, Paul. Yes. If you love Italian food, you'll love this. You said, do the thing. So I shipped my motorcycle to Italy and rode across the country for 25 days. More memory cards and money than I can count. Worth it. That is so awesome. Congratulations. That sounds so cool. I don't like food that keeps me up at night. Keep sharing your story, Amanda. You're living right and encouraging others to do the same. That's amazing. Thank you. Woo. There we go. Da, 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 da. Where was it? Oh my God, I lost my spot. Lindsay says, the East Coast has amazing Italian food. You East Coast people better appreciate it. Yes. I'm glad. Jason says, hello, Amanda. I'm glad you are well and I enjoy all your videos. Have you ever considered a hotel tent like the Big Agnes Blacktail Hotel Bike Pack? Not really. Like a simple 2-person tent is more than enough space for me. It feels homey. The pack size is right. It means I get to carry more of other things that keep me comfortable, like my battery bank. I would rather sleep in a 2-person tent and have room to carry my honkin' battery bank that lets me charge all my stuff than carry a hotel tent. I'm not interested in it. That's the simple answer. I know that Tim and Marissa love their blacktail tent because they are 2 people. They need that space. I don't need that space. Maybe when I get older and it's harder for me to climb in and out of a tent, I will have different feelings. But as of right now, getting out of the tent is not a problem for me. It's more than enough space for me. I like the pack size. That's what I got. Yeah. Oh, Wit did her 48 and 10 in 2021, but I did a lot of fly-in rides in 2020 when things were cheap. Yes. Thank you, Wit. Lindsay says, Texas, to be honest, maybe doing a barbecue tour could make its size bearable. That's fair, Lindsay. Just be prepared. Driving in Texas will take longer than you think it will. Just got here, heard you were in New England. What area had your favorite quiet back roads? Ooh, Bugsy, that's an excellent question. No one has asked me that question. Quiet back roads, probably Maine, actually. Maine had amazing back roads. If you've ever gotten to experience like paved Forest Service roads on the West Coast, like Oregon and Idaho and Washington have these amazing paved Forest Service roads that are like a lane and a half, or they're very tight 2-lane. And if you've ever got to experience that, that was a ton of the back roads in Maine. Was this beautiful, tight paved road, and there wasn't a lot of traffic, and it was beautiful. I loved Maine. It was so nice. When you've done Alaska, maybe do a 50-state montage too. I've been everywhere. It's true. Copyright issues might be a problem. What are the events you'll be attending in 2024? I'm so glad you asked. Let's pull up my calendar, shall we? Oh wow, it's 98 minutes. We're closing in on 2 hours here. Dun, 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 dun. Let me pull up the stuff. Dun, dun, dun. Okay. So, if you are not already aware, the motorcycle camp cookbook that I have been writing for the last year of my life, the Indiegogo campaign launches April 9th. Okay, you hear me? Right? Save the date. Save the date. April 9th, Indiegogo campaign for the cookbook. Also, if you aren't already on the cookbook notification list. I will drop the link in the chat, and you can dump your email there to make sure that you get notified when the cookbook launches. So, oh, Jason, thank you so much for the super chat, my friend. Cheers. Okay, so that's the big event of my life for 2024 is the Indiegogo campaign for the Motorcycle Camp Cookbook, and that is April 9th. The campaign will be 30 days, so all of April, my life will be consumed by the Indiegogo campaign. So when I'm super annoying in April about the cookbook, please understand. The Indiegogo campaign is partially to make it possible for me to print a couple of physical copies. Physical copies will only be available in the US. I'm sorry, my international friends, but the ebook copy of the cookbook will be available internationally, which arguably is better to travel with anyway, that you'll just have it on your phone and you don't have to carry a book with you. So the Indiegogo campaign is making it possible for me to print some physical copy of the books for my US friends, and then distributing the ebook to everyone who would like to back the campaign. But also the Indiegogo campaign is a fundraiser so that Gary and I can go to Alaska in 2025. So there'll be a couple of extra tiers with other goodies if you back the campaign, and on top of getting a copy of the cookbook. To raise money so that Gary and I can go to Alaska. My base tier for Gary and I, just to be able to do it, for the both of us, we need to raise $10,000 in total. So like that would be bare minimum. We would be able to do it for like $10,000 for the two of us. My base budget when I worked out everything that we wanted to do was actually closer to like $7,000 per person. But just to go to Alaska and do like the bare minimum of things that we would like to do, I need to raise $10,000. That does not include the amount of money that I need to raise to also buy books and those kinds of things. So when the Indiegogo campaign comes out and the tier goals, when you see the tier goals lists or whatever, and you're like, wow, that's a lot of money to be a goal, it's because I have to take the amount of money that I'm trying to raise for Gary and I to go to Alaska and then put the cost of physical books and shipping on top of that. Anyway, that besides the point. The other date I want you to write down if you're in Oregon or Washington, or if you're near the PNW in the USA, is April 13th. Okay, are you writing it down? Are you writing it down? April 13th, 2024. I am having an in-person party at Motocorsa in Portland, Oregon. Motocorsa is the Ducati dealership here in Portland. I'm friends with the general manager. His name is Shaheen. He is the best human on this planet. He is a sweetheart. I love him so much. Anyway, that's besides the point. They are hosting our in-person campaign party on April 13th. It's a Saturday. It will be in the afternoon. I will be there and we're going to do a little cooking demo. There will be samples of a couple of the recipes that are in the cookbook. We'll be giving away a couple copies of the cookbook. And plus, I'm talking my mom and my brother into being there with me. And we'll do a raffle. We'll have a bunch of stuff to give away from a bunch of my different sponsors. And we'll have a little party to celebrate the cookbook launch. So yes, so if you're in the PNW, or if you would like to come and hang out with us for an afternoon, April 13th. Got it? You got it? I don't got it. Yes, cool. This information will be available later also, but I would like to see as many humans there as possible. It would be amazing to see you there. So cool. Next, moving on. I will be at the One Moto Show at the end of April. I'm pretty sure. That one is kind of up in the air, but I'm pretty sure I will be at the One Moto Show at the end of April. And then in May, my brother and I will do our annual trip. I think this is a gray zone. Most of these are like general plans right now, besides the cookbook party and the cookbook launch. Those things are set in stone. Those are happening. In May, Gary and I will do our annual trip together, and I think that we're going to base it around going to Overland Expo West in Flagstaff again. I really, really enjoyed my time at Overland Expo West, so I would like to go back. And so I think we'll just use that to go to Arizona. Gary really, really wanted to go to Arizona this last time when we went to Utah, so I'm giving him the gift of going to Arizona so that I can go work the Overland Expo in Flagstaff. And then June, Maupin Madness happens in Maupin, Oregon. I think I'm supposed to be shooting there. That's my gig. And then Ride for Veterans is June 12th through the 15th. So June 12th, we'll be leaving Casper, Wyoming, and we'll get to Milwaukie, Wisconsin on the 15th. Again, Ride for Veterans is a thing that I'm pretty sure everybody could sign up to do. So if you wanted to come ride with me, that is a thing that you could do. I will leave a link for the Ride for Veterans in the chat if you would like to look up information for that. And then I will also be at Tour Attack Rally West again this year to promote the book. And then on my schedule, for people who back the campaign and get physical copies of books, fingers crossed, physical books should get to me in July, and then I will be spending a week and a half packing books and sending books out in July. And then Overland Expo PNW is in July. I will be there again. That was in Redmond, Oregon. I think that we're doing ADV Fest. I don't know right now. That's in a big gray area. And then Rocky Mountain Roll is the first weekend of August. In case you weren't here when I talked about Rocky Mountain Roll a little bit ago, regular or early bird registration starts December 7th. Dun, dun, dun. Let me pull up the link for that. I expect tickets to sell out fairly quickly again. So if you would like to come to Rocky Mountain Roll and you don't already have access to veteran tickets, save the date, December 7th, so that you can get tickets. Very important if you want to come. Okay, here's the Eventbrite link for Rocky Mountain Roll. Cool. And then I have a gray area around August, at the end of August. After Rocky Mountain Roll, there is another trip that I really want to do, but I can't talk about it right now because it's in a gray zone. It has not been worked out yet. And then the other exciting thing about 2024 is that Cabiner North is being released, so that's super exciting. We might be doing it, we might not be doing it. We'll see. Who knows? I don't know. Nobody knows. October, I'm trying to go. Again, gray zone. Don't know if it's happening for sure, but I really like to go to Overland Expo East this year, or 2024, I should say. I didn't get to go this year. It just didn't work out because I was riding across the country. But I would love to get to experience Overland Expo East, and that is in October 2024. And then November and December, I will be working on calendars and doing my normal what I do in the winter things. So that's the main things for 2024. What country would I like to ride in? China and Mongolia are the top of my lists. Those are my bucket list countries. Have you ever ridden on the Peace Trail in Arizona? No, the answer is no. I need one of those hat tie downs for my Aussie hat that I love and want to take with me more often. Yes, Rob and I approve of that. Let's see. Oh, I lost my spot. Here we go. Dun, 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 dun. I sold my 2019 V-Strom a couple of months ago, and I'm currently building my 1999 E350 adventure van. I'll get a dirt bike before I travel again full time. That's awesome. I want a hat tie down too. Excellent. I love that people are interested. That makes me happy. BDRs are not for me. I'll stick to fire roads. That's fair, Dawn. The Mid-Atlantic BDR and the Idaho BDR, I think, are the most friendly and fun, in my personal opinion. Looking to ride in Colorado next year. I would love to ride more in Colorado, but it's not on the charts right at this moment. Most of the trips I'll be doing are a little bit closer to home, or are specifically to work events, so that I could justify the money spent doing that, because I need to be saving as much money as possible so that Gary and I can do Alaska. Sorry, math was wrong. 75 cents per mile. Michael says, hi, Amanda, love the videos. Do you still have the CB500X? I do. She is in my garage right now. To be 100% honest with you, she needs a valve adjustment, and her battery is dead. So she needs a new battery, and she needs a valve adjustment. I've been spending money on tires. The money that I have for bike maintenance has been spent on tires for the Africa Twin. So I haven't bought poor Briarios a new battery or gotten my business together to try to do a valve adjustment on her, or find somebody else to do a valve adjustment on her. We will see. I would really like to do the valve adjustment myself. That way, if I mess it up, I know what I did. And most of everything that has been done on Briarios has been done by me for that reason. So like when I replaced the radiator specifically so that I would know what happened during the radiator replacement, all of those kinds of things. And because she's mine. Anyway, as you may or may not know, I have a lot, I do a lot of stuff. And I am one person, and there's not enough time in the day to do all the stuff that I do. So unfortunately, Briarios has not gotten the attention that she deserves, because I've been riding the Africa Twin and paying for tires for the Africa Twin. Yeah. Mary Cole says, cannot wait for the book. Just put it in my calendar. Yay! Wonderful! Fantastic. Motocorsa is awesome. Would love to see you on a Desert X. I did get to ride a Desert X at Turtletech Rally this year. It was a ton of fun. Wolf says, does it benefit you more for us to buy the physical book if we can, or the ebook? Ooh, Wolf, this is an excellent question. I think the ebook would be better in terms of raising funds, because I would have uploaded like up front, put all the work into making the ebook already. So then if you buy the ebook, all that's involved is just paying fees to Indiegogo for that donation, because Indiegogo does take fees per backer that backs a campaign, but that's a behind the scenes information. But if you back the campaign and just get an ebook, that's probably the most beneficial towards raising funds for the Alaska trip, because I just send you an ebook and there's no extra fees involved with me doing that, versus if you buy a physical copy of the book, I have to buy those books, and then I have to pay for shipping for those books to come to me, and then I have to pay for shipping for those books to go to you. So there's a significantly more chunk of money coming out of that than if you just buy an ebook. That's just the nature of things. I also, like, if you would like to have a physical book, please buy a physical book. Like, it's it's totally okay. It was great meeting you and Gary at the ADV Fest. Do you remember which ramen shop you stopped at in Minneapolis? Excellent question. Let me look that up for you. Dun, 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 dun. I enjoyed Minneapolis. It was a lovely little stay. Ramen, Minneapolis. I stayed at Bunker Hill. That is not the ramen shop, though. I believe I ate at Ramen Kazama. I ate at the one on Como Avenue, and I got there fairly late, and so that street had like died down. There wasn't a ton of stuff happening. And then from there, I drove around downtown in the dark, which was really pretty because there's a lot of lights, and I drove next to the waterfront, and they light up the bridges and stuff. So that was just lovely, and there wasn't a ton of traffic because it was nighttime. It was great. Anyway, the answer to your question is Ramen Kazama And it was really good. And the people there were super friendly. Um, Yay, party sounds fun. It's on the calendar. Yes, I love this. Nancy says, thank you, Amanda, for the ride for veterans. Yeah, excellent. Hi, Eric. It's lovely to see you in the chat. Robin, we miss you at Rocky Mountain World. Gosh darn. Overland Expo East, maybe I'll see you there. Yes! If you find yourself looking for another trip, I'm bringing 14 Aussies with me to Bays Right Out in September. Thanks, Robin. Are you doing Alaska next summer? No, Katie, we're doing Alaska in 2025. So if we can get our funds together, maybe I should knock on wood or something. If we can get enough money together, Gary and I will be doing Alaska. If we cannot get enough money together, we will not be doing Alaska. It's very expensive. Amanda Vaughn, ever come across any long, sketchy roads where it felt unsafe to never ride through again, or where you nearly ran out of gas because the stretch was too long? Well, I did run out of gas in Texas. I don't remember what the road was. I think it was the freeway. And that was my own fault because I didn't stop at the last gas stop I should have stopped at. I have run out of gas in the Big Hole in Montana on Lazarus. Her gas tank's much smaller though. I can't think of any roads that I went down that just felt like really sketchy or unsafe. I think most roads that feel that way are like actually like dead end roads to somebody's property and you shouldn't be there anyway. But yeah, no, I can't think of any road off the top of my head that felt like unsafe, that it wasn't unsafe just because the road was gnarly. And I can't think of a ton of those off the top of my head right now. How is Lazarus doing? She's in my garage. She was running a few months ago, not very well, but we did get her running. And by we, I mean I worked on her for 4 days in a row, and then my grandpa came down and gave her a look, and then she ran. Which is the way that it normally goes. I work my butt off on Lazarus for a few days, and then I cry, and I'm like, why aren't you starting for me? Why don't you love me anymore? And then Grandpa comes, doesn't do anything, okay? Grandpa just comes and looks at it, like with his mouth quirked one way, and then he tells me to start it, and then she runs. Anyway, she gives me a lot of sass. It's a thing between her and I. If for those who don't know, Lazarus is my 1980 Suzuki GS 850 that I did a trip on in 2016. And she was my first bike, and I will never be parted from her. She is part of me. She has enough of my blood that she is part of me. Anyway, she's in the garage. She was running a few months ago. She is leaking. Let me rephrase this. One of her carburetors is not balanced properly, and I need to go and balance it properly. Have I had time to do that? No. She will start, she will run, just not well, and not enough to actually go down the road. Yeah. What skills did you ultimately have to learn since riding, mechanically or whatever comes to mind? Hoping I can watch videos to prep. Everybody will have different opinions about this, so I'm going to give you my opinion. I think it's very important to learn how your motorcycle works. What happens when you pull the brake? What happens when you shift? What happens when you pull in the clutch? If you understand how all of those parts work on the inside, like in your engine, I feel like you become a better rider. If you understand mechanically what is happening inside the engine when you are doing those things, you become a better rider. That is my strong opinion. You can disagree with me, that's fine, but that is what I believe. I think that everybody should be able to do, at least you should be able to do your oil yourself. Not that you have to do it all the time, but you should be able to do. You're getting very strong opinionated Amanda right now. I think also like if you know how your motorcycle works, it means that like when something goes wrong, it's easier for you to communicate. Like if you aren't going to fix the problem yourself and you take the motorcycle to a dealership, if you know how your motorcycle works, you will be able to communicate to a technician more clearly what the problem is. And that will in turn also save you a ton of money because they can start where the problem is instead of having to go through all of these steps to diagnose it. Um, it's better for everybody. It's better for you as a rider. It's better for the health of your motorcycle. It's better for your pocketbook if you take your bike to go get fixed. You can communicate clearly what the problem is. All of the things. Just makes everything better. Anyway, I know that sounds super daunting, but I think the great thing about motorcycles is that to me, like they're like once you have gotten over the hurdle of like learning what those things are, when you break it down, it's pretty simple. Like it sounds complicated when you haven't done any research at all, but like if you start like baby steps to learn, like not taking all of it on head on, just learning little parts of it at a time. Once you get to know what all those parts do, you're like, oh yeah, it's pretty simple. I think that's also one of the reasons I'm so grateful that when I started riding, I started on Lazarus instead of a more modern motorcycle because Lazarus is very simple. Her wiring harness is very simple. There aren't a lot of electronic parts on her. And like carburetors seem super confusing and daunting at first, but like once you pull apart a carburetor once and you figure out what all the parts do, it is really simple. And like all the parts are mechanical, so if there was ever a problem with Lazarus, it's like fuel, air, spark. You know, as long as you had all those things, you could narrow down what the problem was. And I'm so glad that I started on her because she made learning how a motorcycle worked so much easier from the nature of her being a very stripped down machine. There are other like smaller engines that would be even more stripped down. Like if you learned how a moped works, like that's the super stripped down engine. Very easy to learn how that works. Anyway, I'm just grateful for her and everything that she gave to me, and that she gave me a wonderful platform to learn about motorcycling. And I love her so much. Anyway, I'm getting off topic here. What skills did I ultimately have to learn since riding? So, out of necessity, because I was a broke college student, I just had to learn how to work on my bike myself. And that's part of the reason I have such strong opinions about it. And then also having worked at a dealership, I know that if you can know the bare minimum about how your motorcycle works, it helps the technicians. It makes it's so much cheaper for you because they have to spend way less working hours of labor on the bike trying to figure out what the problem is before they can actually fix the problem. I mean, becoming a better rider just means that I think that everybody should take some kind of rider safety course, whether that's just foundations, or whether you've been riding for a long time, maybe taking the intermediate like class somewhere, either through like your what is it? This MSF, Motorcycle Safety Foundation, or through some other like private party or whatever. I think everyone can benefit from training. I have taken like 3 different training courses this year between Jocelyn Snow and SheADV, and then the B&W US Riders Academy, and then in previous years taking the ADV Women's class. Every trainer teaches differently. So if you have an experience with a private trainer or even an MSF coach that you didn't like, and so now you have a kind of a sour opinion about coaching and those kinds of things, try somebody else. Everybody teaches differently. So I wouldn't let one sour experience of a class color your opinion of all kinds of teaching. So definitely take courses when they are available and when you have the opportunity to do so. I think problem solving is just a general skill that if you're going to be a motorcyclist, you really need to be good at problem solving. And that goes for more than just like dealing with the motorcycle itself, but just like everything. Especially if you plan to travel on a motorcycle, you just need to be a good problem solver. Um, yep. I went on about a tangent about maintenance, but well, you have books for sale at TourTech and Overland. Sherry, I hope to have copies for sale. We will see how it goes. It depends on how the Indiegogo campaign goes and how much I can. So if the Indiegogo campaign goes well, and I can buy a big box of books so that I can get like the bulk book purchasing discount, then I will be able to buy a little bit more books to take with me to different events this year. Of course, it'll be a limited number of books because I'll be going to most of those events on a motorcycle. I think I might do a TourTech rally with my truck, so I might have more books if I can buy more books, if that makes sense. If the Indiegogo campaign doesn't go well, and I can't buy, if I don't get a good bulk discount on books, then I might not have physical books for those events, if that makes sense. Depends on how things go. Yeah. Happy to join. Sounds like I will be buying snacks. Yay, Eric, that's lovely. I'm excited. I was hoping you went to Ramen Kazama. It's me and my wife's favorite. Glad you enjoyed our city. Yay! How did the phrase "do the thing" come about? Excellent question. I'm not quite sure if I know how to answer that question. I think in 2018, I was trying to come up with a new outro or something. No, it wasn't. Let me. Because it definitely came around in 2018. That's when I started saying it a lot. And I think it was an intro. It was the intro thing. I had watched some video creators video about like adding intros to all of your videos, explaining who you are, like, and what your mission was, and then like what kind of videos you made. So that's when I starting like every video with like, my name is Amanda Zitto, and I make videos about like motorcycle travel and like camping stuff, and I just want you to get out and do the thing, because that's totally honest. I learned I learned a statistic in like 2017, 2016 about most Americans live about 80% of their life indoors, and that was crazy to me. Partially, like growing up in Montana, we spent a lot of time outside. We are ranchers, so we have to spend a lot of time outside. I can hear my mom laughing right now. But I feel like my whole childhood I spent outdoors. I only came inside because I had to. And then if I was spending the day with my grandma, of course, I would take advantage of the fact that she had TV, so I would watch cartoons. But I did spend most of the day outside even then. And I can't imagine if I had spent most of my childhood inside versus the way that I spent it outside, you know? And so learning that statistic about like most Americans live 80% or more of their life indoors was wild. And there's so many good things that happen to our brain when we're outside, you know? There's so many good things. And I think it's sad that so many people spend so much time indoors. And like, yeah, I spend a ton of the winter inside, but most of the summers I spend outside, you know? Anyway, when I learned that statistics, I just wanted to encourage more people to spend more time outside. However, it was good for them. Of course, like I do it on a motorcycle. I do it by like traveling all over the place because I just want to see new things, and that's part of my personal goals, is just to see new stuff and continue to have awe in this place that we live. And I want more people to get to experience that, and not necessarily that you have to do it on a motorcycle or that you have to do it the way that I do it. I just want you to spend more time outside. and I wasn't very eloquent. And so when I first started stumbling over my intro, I think at one point I did say, like, I just want you to get outside and do the thing. And do the thing was partly because it was vague. I didn't want I didn't want to tell people to go outside and ride. I didn't want to tell people to go outside and camp. I just want you to go outside and do whatever you want to do, whether that's just going for a hike, whether that's just like taking a walk to the grocery store instead of driving, or kayaking, or fishing, or go hunting. Go outside. Just go outside. um, like take the opportunities that you have, like the 10 minutes that you have between doing something else, and go outside. Garden. I don't care what it is. Spend time outside. So the get out and do the thing was a happy accident because I couldn't think of something better to say, and I liked that it was vague enough that you could apply it to a lot of different activities. Anyway, that's a super long-winded answer for a thing that I'm not quite sure how to answer, but that's the gist. Hopefully you and your brother get to go to Alaska, the video and picture duel, yes. Yeah. What was the favorite thing you rode that was not yours? You mean, are you talking about a motorcycle? I mean, the twin is not mine. Hey from Southern Alberta. Hi, Stacy. Fuel, air, spark, and spiders. I think somebody's seen The Pilgrimage. If all of life was as simple as fuel, air, and spark, for real. I dig the hat you wear. Thank you. Doc on a Bike says, you and I discussed how trainers are sometimes not DCT friendly. Have you found any places that really emphasize technique on DCT? No. The answer is no. I still haven't found anybody who is a great trainer specifically for DCT. Most of the trainers I experienced just like they've been trainers for a long time, so they know how to teach people how to ride a motorcycle with a clutch. And I feel like you're going to experience that everywhere. And I think that if you're going to take training on a DCT, you should already have a couple months of trying to do exercises on that DCT by yourself. And mostly because like if you like have that like 3-ish months of learning to ride the DCT on your own, where you figure out how to drag brake instead of reaching for a clutch in order to do slow speed skills and those kinds of things, I feel like that serves you better in a training situation on a DCT, so that when the teacher says that you have to do blah 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 with your clutch, in your brain you can switch it to like whatever thing that you figured out how to do instead of pulling a clutch. And for me, that is dragging front and rear brake, depending on the situation, of course, because most of your control is your throttle and the brakes on a DCT. Yeah. Some trainers are more willing to try to adapt what they're telling you for the DCT, but most of them you will have to remind them and be like, hey, I'm on a DCT. How do you think that I should do this? And I think that will get better over time as like more and more DCTs come out on the market, because I definitely think it's a technology that's here to stay. I don't think it's going anywhere. And I think more people will get accustomed to like working around people with DCT, that the more that they're, the longer that they're around. Maybe I should say that. Yeah. Anyway, I don't personally know anybody who emphasizes technique on a DCT, but if you know anybody, I would love to hear. Doing the BMW 2-day off-road course in March. Excellent, Doc. I think you'll have a wonderful time. The US Rider Academy's like area is huge. And the other benefit of taking the BMW training is that like their facility is massive and they have a lot of obstacles that mimic real world because their facility is so big. They can actually create those obstacles. So like there was a big gravel pit, there was a bunch of ruts and like hills and stuff. that part was fantastic about taking the U.S. Rider Academy training at the facility in South Carolina, like because they were able to simulate so many more real world obstacles. It also meant that like you would do like you would focus on a training thing and then you would do a little loop of the facility that felt more like a real world little ride like that you would do into the woods. And I loved that so much, like being able to learn a skill like on in a controlled area like around cones and stuff, and then go and do a loop of the facility and then essentially put that skill immediately into a more real world environment was so valuable. Highly recommend it. It was fantastic. Oh, thank you, Nancy. I'm outside at work plus when I'm off. Yes. Yay! People live in a box, work in a box, ride around in a box, and when they die, they get buried in a box. No more boxes! Get out and do the thing! Yes! 100%. Yes. Wow, we're at 2 hours. I'm gonna check the, see if I have any questions that I have not hit yet. We talked a little bit about the cookbook. I have a handful of recipes left that need to be photographed, and I need to hand the book off to an editor. All of the things. And then Toby on Instagram also asked, other than your new luggage bags, what new gear have you replaced or substitute since the last cross-country trip, which is hard. If you didn't know, I got all new bags. Wolfman Luggage made me fresh bags. I also had prototype saddlebags. Nobody else has them in the whole world. They're one of a kind that I did the most recent cross-country trip on because Wolfman is switching to Threadworks. So all the bags will be made in the US again. Most of them are being made by Eric himself, who is the owner of Wolfman. And I love those bags. They were amazing. I was so happy with them. Other new gear, I got Denali lights. I had Denali auxiliary lights. I had I think they were the D3s on top. Don't quote me. I think they were the D3s on my engine guards, and then I had the 2 little baby aux lights at the bottom of my forks. Having those was incredible because I ended up doing a lot. I ended up riding more in the dark than I really wanted to. So having the Denali electronic lights was awesome. I was supposed to also have the taillight kit, but I'm missing a plug part for it because initially when I was leaving for the cross-country trip, I took all those parts for the lights down with tires to the dealership to get the tires installed, and then I was hoping they would have time to do the lights. Turned out that they opened the box, then they decided they didn't have enough time to do the lights, so then they gave me the boxes of lights back. I think somebody accidentally pulled out the plug that I needed for the taillight light, and they still have it. So then when I took the bike to Montana, Gary and I installed the aux lights and found that we were missing the plug for the little tail light thing. But nobody rear-ended me, so everything was okay. Oh my goodness. I know there's something else that I'm forgetting. There's always something that I'm forgetting. Those were the big aux lights and bags. Oh, I had a new tent for this trip. I had the Exped Mira 2, which is their updated backpacking tent. I think the footprint, like when you set it up, the footprint of the Exped Mira 2 is just a smidge larger than the Big Agnes, but the headroom is a little bit less. I don't know. I would have to measure it. The only thing that I missed from the Big Agnes tent was actually the pockets. So in the Big Agnes tent, there's a pocket across this side and then a pocket across this side. And in the Exped Mira 2, I just have the gear loft in the middle of the tent. So, and then the small pockets at the head next to the bathtub. And that was the only thing that I really missed about the Big Agnes. The Exped doesn't have the short pole, so it's long, but it wasn't a big deal when I was packing everything. It still fit in the duffel bag just fine. Let's see. I still had my Dura AR sleeping pad. I was using the Winterlight. I was using the Exped Winterlight 15 sleeping bag, so that's also different than the sleeping bag that I had on the last trip. It was a little bit colder because it was colder. Um, I was still using the big battery bank that I took on the last trip. Same laptop, same Pelican case. I, of course, had to take a lot more. I was taking a lot more gear this trip than I was in the last one, but that was because I had to take a bunch of extra gear for other brand projects that I can't talk about. Of course, I took the Jetboil Genesis 2 on this trip, which I did for the KOA project. Because from a marketing perspective for them, it made more sense for me to be cooking on a propane stove that more people would probably be taking instead of a little isobutane stove. So I took the Jetboil Genesis, which is essentially a 2-burner propane stove, and then it folds in half. So it's like, it's very big. It took up 80% of one saddlebag. 70%? 70% of one saddlebag. I was still able to stuff my food and my other kitchen equipment around it, so it wasn't a huge deal, but it was a difference. But like cooking on that stove is really nice, and so I wasn't angry about it, but definitely a different piece of kit and definitely took up a lot of space. Let's see. I think that's the main bit. I switched drones. I bought a DJI Mavic Air 2S for this trip, and I had a Mavic Air for the last one. Also, like the last trip, I had the Sony A7R2. For this trip, I had the A7C. DSLR cameras. Of course, I have the Action 2 on the helmet instead of the Action 1st gen. And then, yeah. It's funny to think about all the stuff that has changed since the last trip. That's well, on the hat carrier, of course. I made the hat carrier for this trip after the disastrous hat situation on the last cross-country trip. Anyway, those are the main things. I know you've trained lots of skills over the last year. What was your favorite or most challenging for you, and what would you suggest someone do on their own with like cones? I think it's beneficial for everyone to do S practices where you essentially start at one end and you have to do like a super exaggerated turns like this. I think everybody has to practice that. I mean, like, it's easier for me now at the end of the year than it was at the beginning of the year, but I think that everyone should be practicing that because it's very hard to be focused on getting around one obstacle. But you have to, when you get halfway around this obstacle, you need to already be thinking about getting around the next one. Otherwise, you're not in the right body position to get around the next one. Thing that I struggled with the most, I think the BMW US Riders Academy, I struggled with the cowboy mount on the right-hand side of the bike, which is really funny because when I did that on the Twin during the CADV training and at Touratech, I managed to do that fine on both sides on the Twin. On the BMW that we did the US Riders Academy stuff with, I was on the GSA and I eventually got it on the left-hand side, but I couldn't on the right-hand side, and we eventually switched to the next thing before I nailed it on the right-hand side of the BMW. And that was the only two things that I dumped the bike on during the US Rider Academy training was the cowboy mount on the right-hand side of the bike. And then for those who don't know, the cowboy mount is like where both of your legs are on the ground, right, on one side of the bike, and you start the bike and you put one foot on the foot peg, your left foot. If you're on the left side, you put your left foot on the foot peg. Excuse me. you get the bike rolling, and then you kind of like hop along for like 1 or 2 steps, and then you throw your leg over as the bike is moving. And then, of course, if you're doing on the right side, your right foot is on the peg, and you hop along and you throw your left foot over as the bike is moving. So I dumped my bike doing that, and then the only other obstacle that I dumped the bike on at the BMW training was in the gravel pit. I'm so glad that we got to do that. That was like something I didn't get to do in any of the other trainings I did this year, because they had an actual big gravel pit already set up. And so I think I dumped it 2 or 3 times during the pit, and then by the end I did it 3 times in a row without messing up, and so that felt really good. Really hard to practice going through a deep gravel pit on your own, though. Unless you have one near you, but always take a buddy with you if you're going to do something like that, because it could be really easy to hurt yourself or your bike trying to practice that skill. Was my favorite thing. I mean, it's the other thing that I think is an easy thing that anybody could practice is actually just like putting your bike center, like, and putting the kickstand up and just kind of like moving around the bike. So this is just like a thing where if you get the bike center and you put the kickstand up, and you can feel where the natural center of the bike is, where it's nice and balanced, and then slowly move around the bike with only 1 or 2 hands touching the bike. Of course, if you're going to do this by yourself, do it with 2 hands, and maybe don't do this by yourself. Maybe I shouldn't say that. Have a buddy. But just find where the bike is center, and then slowly move around the bike. So like if you're at center, you have your hand on the handlebar and like maybe like the luggage rack or something on the back of the bike, and then slowly move around the front. So you're like grabbing hard parts, never grab plastic parts of the bike. Like grab like the engine guards around the front, and then like slowly work away carefully around the front. And you want your eyes to be level with the horizon while you're doing this. And like work all the way around the bike doing that, right? With your eyes up, level with the horizon. Don't look down. Like you could like glance down to figure out where to put your hands next, but your eyes need to be level with the horizon to maintain stability, you know? If you look down, you're so much more likely to drop the bike. I think that is a really, really easy thing, and I think more people should do that because you are so much more familiar where the balance point is on your bike, and you can also gain a lot of confidence doing that. I met a gentleman at the Overland Expo PNW, and he told me that he had gotten into an accident and he was just really scared to get back on his bike, and he asked me if I had anything to give him that he could take away and try to gain confidence to get back on the bike after that accident. And I told him to do that because like it's something that you wouldn't have to get back on the motorcycle, but it would like benefit you getting comfortable with that motorcycle again in a controlled environment that feels safe. And he messaged me later and said that it really helped, and he went and rode again after that. So that was just a feel-good thing, and I think that's something that everybody could practice and would definitely help getting you familiar with your bike, and it's super easy. And yeah. I still want to see you do a wheelie, except I want to see you do it on a Goldwing. Very funny. How much longer are you gonna torture that poor Honda? Ha 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 ha. I had some custom short poles made. I had some custom short poles made for my Alps tent so they would lay flat in my panniers. The custom poles most cost more than the tent itself. Oh, wow, Paul. Wow. Hi, Amanda from upstate New York. Hello, Bruce. Michael, I have a video suggestion. Maybe do an updated vlogging equipment and process. I think your last one was from a couple years back. This is true. It didn't seem like a lot of people cared all that much, to be honest. And I've got a lot of different adventures in the backlog right now, so maybe in the future. Center of gravity. Thank you, Nancy. I agree. Getting back on after my accident has been challenging, and I'm trying to ride every week. Yes. I think getting on after something where you feel really unsettled and if you've lost confidence in yourself and your relationship to the bike, it can be really hard to get back on. Um, of course, like the rancher thing would be like, well, you got to get back on the horse. Otherwise, like you spend way too much time in your head being scared about the horse. Um, but I think doing that, like the walk around trick, is very, very helpful. Anyway, you guys, we're at the 2 hour mark, and I'm gonna wrap it up here. Thank you all so much for being here. I appreciate you. I'm sending you all digital hugs. Thank you for being here. Thank you everybody for the super chat. And make sure that your calendar is marked for April 9th for the cookbook launch. Huh. Okay, I'm sending you all digital hugs. I hope that you are well. And get out and do the thing when you can. I know it's getting cold for all of us who live up in the northern states, but try to spend a little bit of time outdoors if you can stand it. Even if it's not riding your bike. I know that it's painful, but spending time outside is important. Anyway, I'll see you guys later. Okay, bye.